Hey everyone, good morning. How are we doing today? Hope everyone is well. All folks are coming in. Well, folks are coming in. Feel free to drop in the chat. Where are you? What's your name? What subjects or classes do you teach? What's the weather like this morning over in your area? I'd love to hear from everyone. Awesome. Welcome everyone. So great to see you all today. Thank you for going into the chat this morning. We'd love to hear from you, where you are in the world, what the weather looks like around you today, and a little bit about the classes that you teach and all that good stuff. So, kind of as folks are still coming in, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. And feel free to say hi if you recognize anyone from your cohort or your other cohort meetings that you've been to. We'll give it about 1 or 2 more minutes for folks to come in. Oh man, we've got some springtime snow. Wow, that's great. Hopefully you have some beautiful daffodils popping through the snow, remind you it's almost spring. Gloomy, cold, and raining today. Awesome. Overcast in San Diego. What a rare event. Cloudy. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't yet. We'll go ahead and get started very soon. Out in the bay, cloudy and rainy. Thank you, Don. I love a good Saturday morning jazz. Also confused showers, some sun showers, hopefully some rainbows up in the bay as well. Awesome. Thanks everyone for taking a moment to do that. Introduce yourself in the chat. I think we're about ready to get started here. And just want to welcome you all again to our final cohort meeting of the year with Jerome and I. We're today going to talk about the teacher practice of pushing to the next level, which is ambition. We hope you all kind of are coming today with, maybe some note-taking materials, whether it's paper and pen or taking notes on your computer, or maybe you just want to stay present and really absorb and listen. All of these are great. If you have a phone handy nearby, we'll have a survey close to the end that we have a QR code for. And of course, a beverage of choice. I've got coffee for me, whether it's tea or water or anything hydrating for this morning. Feel free to just take a moment and grab something to keep you company throughout our hour and a half today. But Jerome and I are really excited to welcome you all and to talk a lot about kind of preparing and going towards demo day in these final few months. So here's our schedule for today. We're already going through welcomes and introductions, and then we're going to move into our community share for the day, which we're really excited to have Dr. Dawn Facera talking about this teacher practice. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail of teacher practice that Dawn shares about from her personal experience and professional experience as a Project Invent Fellow. And we're going to spend also quite a bit of time going over preparation for demo day. So talking a lot about what a minimum viable product means, what that product or prototype might look like in your classroom, and then we're going to have community building time where you all will have the option to interact with each other, learn from each other, and build on our community of practice that we started to establish way back, if you can believe it, in summer of 2023 when we were all first starting our training together in Summer Institute and in the fall in Fall Institute. So, with that, um, I will toss it over to Jerome to talk through kind of our intentions for the day, what we're welcoming, what we're setting aside.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Great to chat with you all. Um, you know, we really love for this time to be a collaborative effort, and we love the opportunity for us all to come together on a Saturday and share in some of this development. We recognize that at Project Invent, we do not have all of the answers, and so the opportunity to bring you all together and to share some of your great experience while also having an opportunity to learn from one another is really awesome. So that's why we do these, to build community, to collaborate and reflect with one another, to share feedback and to give you an opportunity to share some of your experiences, both your wins in your classroom or in your space, and the challenges that you're having as well, and potentially help to solve some of those. The We typically, Alexis and I, we're always up for answering any of your questions and any of the logistics needs. We're happy to answer those at any point. In general, I would say in general, but for this meeting, if they're one-off individualized questions, maybe save them for the end of the meeting or send us an email after, just so that we can share collaboratively on the things that are important for the whole group. Also, if you can put aside distractions on a Saturday like this, I know if you're interested in like March Madness, there are games going on right now, both men's and women's. So it's easy to get distracted by those sorts of things. I'm trying to not watch those myself. But the more that you can be present, the more we really love it for you to be able to share and be a part of these conversations. So we appreciate you all coming with that intentionality and time while we're all together.
Yeah, thanks, Jerome. Awesome. Well, since we've already kind of done our introductions there in the chat, I would love to welcome Dr. Don Fichera for our community share portion. Dr. Don has been a Project Invent Fellow since last year and is a language arts teacher, EdSafe AI Fellow, also so many other wonderful things that I didn't include here. So please feel free to introduce yourself, Dr. Don, coming from Cherry Hills, New Jersey, and Beck Middle School.
Yes. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. Good morning, fellow fellows. I'm happy to be here. I know that you guys are right at the very, like I find to be the most exciting and can be some of the most frustrating ends of where you are. So that, that energy is energy regardless. So just harnessing it in a positive way is really, just, I think, a great way to look at it. I think some kids at this point are either really recognizing like their frustrations and being able to push through that, or recognizing like, hey, I can do this, right? Short background, I don't want to talk too much about myself because Lexus did a great job in just introducing me, but I'm coming from Cherry Hill Middle School. This is my second year as a fellow, and previous to that, I was a pitch coach for a couple of the teams, and I actually ended up going to demo day as well. So I've been with Project Event for 3 years, and I sing it from the rooftops. I can't say how excited I am to be part of this program. And I'm so excited to see you all part of this program as first year fellows. And I truly hope that you take advantage and become a second year fellow, because it's something that resonates deeply with me and with my kids. I have graduating 8th graders who've been with their program since they were in 7th grade last year, and they're taking it to the high school level. They're trying to introduce a chapter there. They are just so enmeshed in this and what it does for them and gives them, that it's just a real great lifelong experience that they can take with them. So I'm excited to share with you. I'll show just, I kind of want to start, I'll show you just a couple of the slides that I took. I just came back from the ITEEA in Memphis, and I was talking about design thinking and microbit technology, but of course I used the 2 Project Invent years with the team to talk about my students and give an opportunity for case studies. So I'm going to drop, actually, can I share? Do I have share screen availability? Yeah. All right. I'm just going to show you some pictures, and then and kind of talk a little bit about what they've accomplished. And I do want to allow some times for questioning, but I do want to share how awesome these kids have been and are the last 2 years. Let me see. Let me see. Screen sharing. I don't want to do that. It's been a while since I've desktop one, and they've done a new layout system. Grant access. Zoom and that's screen recording. I think I'm going to instead, I'm going to drop it in the chat. That's what I want to talk about. I will get there, but I don't know why it's not sharing in chat. iPad AirPlay. I haven't shared in a long time, and I don't know why my desktop's not sharing it, but I apologize.
Do you want to try sending the link to me and I can
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, I'm going to drop the link in, but now this thing won't go away. Cancel that. Sorry. Copy link. There you go. Can you open that, Jerome?
Yep.
Yep. Usually with this like awkward pause, I start asking like, would you rather? Awesome. So if we could go down to slide, national opportunities, tech for good. I would love to start at slide 11. Slide 11. Really great. Okay. So this was my, these are my students from this year, a couple of my 6th grade students, which was really great. They're working on a microbit technology to help our 2 community partners with who have Parkinson's and are working with tremors. So they're using the technology to not only be able to use a seismograph with the tremors, but to be able to detect if it's a true tremor or if it is a movement of the arm instead. So this is one of the things that my kids are working on, but I just kind of wanted to show you some photos. We can kind of slowly go through like the pictures of them engaged in their work that they are doing. This is Madden. He's my 2nd-year student. You can see that he is trying to complete a glove that would be able to detect tremors using the microbit technology. And they're also incorporating AI to be able to trend and do patterns with it and to be able to recognize, again, how frequent these tremors could be, how intense these tremors can be. They were looking at some of the work by Stanford. They have a glove that's already been released. So they were trying to figure out how can we take this idea from Stanford and make it something that is more affordable and scalable for social good. So he's looking at the glove that he created and was able to, the Stanford glove that is in prototype phase is going to be extremely expensive. It's not going to be accessible to all. And really with learning that empathy piece and how do we make it accessible to all? How can we make it affordable for all? And that's the beauty of the microbit technology. It's $25 for the little microbit, but that's what they're focusing on with this glove. Next one. And these are a couple just showing them in action. That's a couple, that's Amir, and another Ryan, who's to Madden's right, is a 2nd year as well, where these kids were able, and I'm showing these 2nd years mostly because when they come back the 2nd year, hopefully you're going to be able to host your club or your team next year, and you have your 2nd years come back. I turned it over to them. Like they run the show, they run the class, they run the questions. I truly am just a facilitator and will jump in if I need to, and I tell them what the goals are. But it's really letting go. It's that letting go of the wheel and letting student drive competency, right? That we look at with a project event platform. So these kids will go through and they'll answer questions and they'll troubleshoot and they teach them the code. To this day, I cannot code a microbit to do anything. Seriously, can't do it. I've been 2 years with microbits. My kids could code seismographs. They can code. They figured out how to add on different extensions to it. They troubleshoot the questions when my other students, my 1st years, have the questions. They drive home that point of empathy and working with your community partner. They drive home that point of failing through feedback and continuously moving through, even through the frustrations. They drive the idea of a prototype is just how might it look? How might it work? It's like a lo-fi kind of an application where it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this final project, right? It's the intent behind it of trying to improve somebody's life or trying to improve a multitude of lives. And then they come up with that, like, not only can they do this for our community partner, but what's the scalability? So my second years will teach the kids, like, hey, what are you thinking past this? Right? How could other folks who may not necessarily have some kind of an obstacle that they're trying to overcome, how can this be used in a broader perspective? So they're really trying to teach that. And I'm so fortunate to have my second years to be able to work with these groups. We went from 7 kids last year to 24 this year. So they meander around and they do talk about, what's coming next. And I do love the opportunity, my second year kids, they'll talk to students who are like, oh, I had this really great idea. And they start like developing this idea. And my kids will always go back and say, yeah, but is it what Susan wants? Is it what Thomas wants? Or is this just some cool idea that you came up with? How does this come back to your community partner? And because they are my second years and they're in that peer group, my students, my first year students will listen to them. Right. And they take it to heart. So it's a really great opportunity when you have that mixture of first years and second years to push through. And then I have Jennifer is amazing. If you flip through, I'll show you a picture of her. She's like writing down. She's got a plaid shirt. Can you, yeah, that's last year's demo day. Can you, yeah, right here. So back there. So Jenny, one more back. That's Susan, our partner. One more back. There you go. So Jenny is amazing. We call her the team mom. And she writes down and she transcribes all the transcripts from our interviews with our community partners. And she goes and she's like, okay, your group had this, and this is the feedback from Haddon and here, and she will direct them. And she's always telling them, everything that you do has to have an alignment with our community partner. Like you can't just veer off and be like, oh, I had this great idea for how we're going to incorporate this in climate change. And they're like, she's like, well, that has no bearing on what Tom or Susan said. So it's great to have these kids who are really, truly running it and they own it. My goal with Project Event was to have these students own this and to be able to grow from it. And that's pretty wonderful. The integrating the push into the next level, there's a lot of other pictures here, but pushing to the next level, I think what has worked for us, not just having my second year kids, but what's worked for us is having these team building days where it's the kids come in, I buy them pizza, they go outside and they play together. They become empathetic towards one another. And that was an incredibly strong piece in our team last year and in our teams this year, is that yes, you're developing empathy for your community partner, but also for each other. So it becomes much more easy to fail in front of each other, to receive that feedback. So there are days where, especially now until the end, we usually meet like once a week on Wednesday, but now until May, we'll be meeting twice a week. So there's 2 times a week meetings. And I meet after school for like an hour after school. And those times that we meet twice, one of them is directed towards just getting to know each other, just hanging out with each other, right? Having fun with one another, and then being able to develop the courage to fail in front of one another, to ask questions where you don't feel it's just a low stakes kind of involvement. So I think the push until the next level for me is not only having my students run the show, but also allowing them to integrate within one another's like lives, right? Customizing the curriculum. I think that the Project Event does such a great job with breaking down those slide decks, right? And giving us an idea of what the expectation is, giving us the rubrics. We're teachers, we're educators. That's what we're used to. We're used to being like, what do I need to do? How does this need to get done? And the kids are used to seeing that. Like, what are my expectations? How do I need to get done? And they give a really solid foundation for us to work with. So again, like I always show the videos that come along, and I really do plug and play what Project Event gives us, and then we are able to incorporate some of the personal experiences that my second year teams have. So we'll be able to show a slide deck that they put together. We'll be able to show where they started from and their prototypes in the beginning from last year to the prototype at the end, so they can other kids can see like it doesn't have to be a perfect thing at the end, right? It's really just like it's not a fancy watch. They want to have all these ideas of 3D printing and they want to do this and they want to make this beautiful output. And that's okay. And I had kids that were asking, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it fails? And my teams are very like, it's okay if it fails, right? It's not a perfect kind of a thing. So customizing it would just be definitely interspersing my kids' own experiences into it. I believe that last year when it was my first year of being a fellow, we just, again, like really like looked at what the slide deck was asking us to do, and we brought in Nico, who was our first community partner. So he was a first-year community partner. We were first-year fellows. So just bringing him into the fold all the time and to give us feedback and to put him as part of our team so he could drive that direction as well. So learning together was definitely like, you can customize it based on what your community partners' needs are, where your kids are, and where their comfort level is, and then like figuring that out and pushing through some of those frustrations towards the end. And outside of that, like any tips or like, I think tips or tricks is really just to let, again, like let the kids like just stay curious, drive and fail, and to constantly remind them that failure is feedback. If you're not failing, you're not trying, right? Like if you're going there thinking like this is going to be perfect, it's not going to be. I think that last year with the, not I think, but with last year with our slide deck, for instance, the kids like put everything on, but then like I went back the night before and I was like, all right, our night before our meeting, I was like, well, we need more storytelling. My influence on last year's demo day was the storytelling part. I have a background in public relations. So I was like, well, where are our pictures? How are we showing our steps, right? How are we showing where we got from A to B? And really you're teaching them different skills because they have to learn how to present in front of an audience, right? And that can get really, really frustrating for kids or really scary for kids. So I helped with the slide deck. I was like, make sure you go back. I always post pictures of their progress from the start of the year to the end of the year. And they're always on Google Classroom. So my kids can go back and take pictures out of what they've seen with them with their work in the middle of everything. And they can show the progression of like, here we were in September, we started, there were 7 of us, or this year, there's 5 of us in our team, whatever there might be. And they show the progression. So I have all these pictures at the end. It's because that's what visually impacts the audience. That's what's visually going to impact people looking at the product, right? You have a physical product, but people want to see the kids, right? We have to remember we're educators and they get all this information. Like kids don't want to present information, but present the story, like visually present the story, what's happening, right? Here's them to, like, if you go to the end, you can slide, there's a bunch of pictures. That's our Susan. That's them working with Haddon. Keep going. There's like all that's a mirror. So like pictures like this, right? So if we slow down a little bit and you can click through, there's a bunch of pictures that come up, real students, real like, this is telling the story, right? You have a product, but this is, keep going. There's pictures underneath, I think. Yeah. So there you go. You can scan that. But this is really telling the story. So my tips is like, how do you tell that story of the beginning of the process to the end of the process? We all know that there's going to be tech issues, but how do you tell the story of where kids were, how they're involved, how they're engaged with the technology, how they're engaged with each other, and making sure that your students are including that community partner. You saw Susan on there. Haddon was he looked at our prototypes and gave feedback, right? So you're including everybody that was part of this process. And that's what people want to see, is who's involved in this process, right? Not just the kids, who's impacting the students? How does this impact the students? And that tells a story, and that takes the pressure off a lot of like having this tech have to be perfect, because it's the story along the way. And then when we got closer to demo day, they just like every Wednesday, again, we were meeting twice a week. So every Wednesday I had them going through their slides. Like you had your note cards, you wrote your script. It's like a presentation like anything else. Get used to saying it, right? And have everybody be able to pick up. We have a girl that was very nervous talking, but again, Jenny wrote the scripts for everybody. She's our researcher. So, if you were nervous talking, like Madden could pick up or Ryan could pick it up. They all know what's happening there. And teaching them, like, how do you go through the slide deck, letting them know you might have 5 minutes for your presentation. So each slide, you've got 30 seconds to 45 seconds to minimize the words, maximize the story visual telling. And that story visual telling gives them a safe space to go back and be like, that's what we were doing there. So if they lose track of what their script is, they can look at the story that they've put up there for themselves as a reminder, right? Oh, we were doing this and this is what happened. So somebody can pick it up. All right, I've talked enough.
No, that was fabulous. Thank you so much for all of that. And it's so cool to see this slide deck and all of the pictures of your students. Want to open up to the group here for, 2 or 3 minutes or so. Like, what questions do you have for Dr. Dawn? Did anything resonate with you? Did anything like, really shine through in what she was speaking to about pushing to the next level? And yeah, what comments or questions might you have? Please feel free to throw it in the chat or come off of mute here. We'd love to hear from you for quick Q&A session.
start it off. I just wanted to tell Dawn, thank you so much for sharing. But what especially resonated with me was less the product and more sharing the story and the journey with the
Yeah.
students. I think that really resonated with me because I'm at a space right now where I'm sure many of you are, where it's like, oh, this is chaos.
Yeah.
Like there's so many like problems that are popping up and students are just like breaking down. It's the spring, we're tired too. But leaning into that, yet there's still growth to show there. There's still like we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for
Progress.
the being able to see the progress. And I love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Awesome. We have Valerie in the chat. I like the idea of running the presentation every week until it becomes natural for the
Yeah.
students to tell the story. That's such a great call out too. I think it's like something they talk a lot about in public speaking is not having a script, not having this formulaic approach, but getting really comfortable with the story piece and being an expert in that story. And so if you forget your line, you're able to keep moving on and keep going forward and telling through that passion and that why.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, India, same thing, right? Like, again, I think that's because my background is in PR. Like that storytelling is so critical that I think, kids do get, and teachers, we get wrapped up in like, what's the progress? What's the product? It's an experience from start to finish. You want to show that, right? That's what this is all about. How are our kids impacted, right? How are they truly being empathetic? How can you show and share that empathy with a community partner? The design is cool, right? Like designing something physical is super cool and it comes with its own set of frustrations, but everybody can get behind the story. Everybody's part of it.
And that's something I'll say, we have certain things that we recommend that you put into your demo day pitches, but we welcome, these extra photos or like making that part of the story like Don's talking about is really valuable for demo day as your students are getting ready. So like especially if they're at a point where they're like, this was really tough for us. So here's a bunch of photos of us like really struggling here. You're more than welcome to talk about like you struggling through this process when you're presenting at demo day. That's we welcome that in that presentation.
Especially like we had one of my teens, like sixth grade teens was Sue, like they had like they had an idea of like with their wristband and they're like, and Hoskins, he's so sweet. He's like, it doesn't work, but we're going to make it work. We're going to try it on you anyway. Like, but we took pictures of that, they were like, well, it's okay. If this doesn't work, we're gonna see what we're gonna do. And they strapped her up to it anyway. And they were like, what about this? What about? And they made her part of that process. So Susan was able to give feedback of like, I feel that, I don't feel that. Like she's right there with us, right? That's what, again, bringing in your community partner is a true part of the team. She's slated to come with us every Wednesday through, and we're bringing her to demo day. So she's slated to come all the way through, like really leaning into what does your partner have to say, right? Like, we developed quotes from last year, like, and I tell my kids this year, and probably a lot of kids will do the same thing because I'm sharing what our tips were, right? I make sure that on every slide, except for maybe like the comparison slide, that there is a quote from our community partner. You have to show that they're involved, right? You've interviewed your community partner. You've spent time with them. Hopefully someone has scribed for you some critical components, and you make that story connect. Story connecting through the quotes from your community partner, story connecting through the photos of your kids working in the team, right? It's just information, right? And I teach rhetoric right now. And I'm teaching like I hate pathos. It's all emotion until it comes to something like this. This is when you want the pathos. This is where you want that connection of here is where we worked with our community partner. Here are our struggles. Here are the pictures of us working together. Here's what they said and why what we created works for them specifically, right? So having quotes and bringing them in, I think is a powerful component of the storytelling. They're going to murder me for like sharing that, by the way. They'd be like, how come everybody else has quotes and pictures? I'd be like, oh.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dawn. This was really great and insightful, and we are so appreciative of you coming to this cohort meeting and sharing this authentic perspective that you have. And it just adds so much value to these meetings to have our community shares. We have our other folks who have done our other community shares as well, Louise and Tabby. Shout out to you both as well for helping out in our earlier cohort meetings. But it's so wonderful to hear the authentic perspective of our fellows who are doing this in the classrooms, in the after school settings, because hearing from you and how you incorporate your community partner in this really empathetic and constructive way, hopefully can inspire a lot of our other educators here today, and they can learn and they can grow, and we can all kind of share together in practice how these elements can come together in this final like month, because a lot of us are going into spring break, so really is our final month of Project Invent for April. So
Yeah.
just want to say thanks again, and this was great.
I'm glad. And real quick, just I know I know you guys like have a lot to do, but I want to address something that was spoken by Wendy about this idea of like a lot of her kids were nervous that the final product wasn't working. It's okay. Tell your kids it's okay if it doesn't work. Right? Again, it's the progress in the journey. All right. I'm done.
Yes, thank you so much. And we're exactly what, you're speaking to about product and invention and working versus not working. We're going to get into all of that in this meeting and talk through different strategies for helping the students get there for demo day. But in practice, really what that looks like is we have a works like model and a looks like model. And sometimes the works like model is really scaled back and just has a couple of components, but the students worked really hard on getting those components to show their proof of concept. And then they have a really cool model that they've built. But those two maybe aren't going together in their final prototype. And it's kind of together as like this proof of concept. And yeah, it's okay if things aren't perfect. It's okay if things aren't working. This next month is all about pushing to the next level to get as close as we can be to the students and the participants like ideal model for what they want to showcase in May. So awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, with that, we will segue into talking a little bit more about this teacher practice. We want to kind of just give a high level overview of this so we can really go into community building time where folks get the opportunity to interact with one another. Um, Hopefully you'll have some time with Dr. Dawn to ask more questions, and maybe if you want to interact a little bit in a more one-on-one or small group setting, we'll have a lot of time for that. But going back to this idea of pushing to the next level throughout April is just taking those incremental steps, those little baby steps, with as much time as you have with your students, your young people, to get them to um, make the best version of their pitch and the best version of their prototype that they can get to. And wherever you land in May, it is okay. And it is all about that journey. So what we are really focusing on with this teacher practice is teaching and modeling ambition for our learners, really showing them positive encouragement and showing them the value of iteration on our design. We can hit up to that May 3rd deadline for iteration on our slide deck, on our prototype. So we've got really like a good amount of time left. And it really looks and sounds like, who can we reach out to learn more? Are there other like people in the community that maybe aren't your formal community partner that you can bring in, for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe a phone call? Maybe a student has a family member or friend or somebody in their neighborhood that might be a subject matter expert on Parkinson's, like on the medical side, for example, with Dr. Dawn. Maybe somebody like that would give a quick advice or quick feedback and just help them elevate that piece a little bit more. So really is consistent feedback, trying to think about who else you might want to network with, giving support as much as you can to your students, and helping them in that continuous iteration process, almost hitting up to that deadline of demo day. We're really modeling and developing their ambition. Jerome, anything to add on this?
We're gonna give a very tangible example of literally moving up to the next level, like just thinking about this as levels, right? And that yeah, you always want to be thinking about what the aspirational project could be and what the ideal version of this could be, but maybe your students realistically are only going to get one level above wherever they're currently at. Maybe they'll get two or three, but helping to push them there and see that as growth is really important. And then also similarly, talking about that in demo day and saying like, if we had, all the money in the world and all the time in the world, we would love for this to look like X, Y, and Z. This is what we would do next. But we only got to this point in the process. And so again, them showing that they have kind of visions of what this could be next and that they've thought further beyond that is really great. And so that's why we like to push this idea of pushing to the next level and thinking about it in kind of tiers of like, this would be our next goal. And then that would be the following goal after that, is really helpful, because that's also how engineers think. That's how inventors think. That's how other people, that's how the real world works. We know, we constantly get new updates to our iPhones and whatever else, right? Because they're constantly iterating. And that's what we're trying to model for students, is this idea of iteration and moving on to whatever the next version of better looks like.
Yeah, that was great. So feel free, we have a quick discussion question here. Feel free to come off of mute or share in the chat. What do you see as the value in helping your students to iterate their presentation or pitch or iterate their invention? How might we frame this value to students so that they see this ambitious goal of trying to get to demo day? How can we frame it in a positive way where they're seeing and reflecting on their personal growth and are able to think really big, but also not get overwhelmed with, oh, I got to do this perfect thing for demo day and all these things have to work? I'd love to hear from you all. What do you think is the value of iterating, and how might you frame this value to your students, your participants?
Well, I'll go first. So I teach this as a class, and so I have a lot of luxury of time. And I make my students go through several iterations of prototype, from like, drawing and designing low fidelity over and over and over, as well as presenting. Like, they present their product to our community partners probably every other week through the whole like second semester. And I think what Dr. Dawn brought up is that familiarity and that comfort is what they get from it. Like, the more that you're doing this, the more that you're interacting with it, the more you're, trying this and something goes wrong and you're trying it again. Like, I had a student trying to design a more ergonomic mouse, and he was gonna like take an entire mouse apart and rewire it, and that wasn't gonna work. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna pivot to 3D printing. And he must have gone through like 15 different designs that he 3D printed. But because he did that, he is so able to speak to the problems that he ran into and the process of, so I hit this wall and this is what I did. I hit a new wall and this is what I did. And he's so much more comfortable with it because it happened over and over and over again. So I think, yeah, that comfort, that natural part of telling the story versus just, I did this one thing and it's this small part of my life right now, is what mine are getting from it.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. That was really, really insightful. And it's so great and encouraging to hear like 15 different prototypes. That's awesome. And we have something from Tennille in the chat. I want to frame in a way so that they can feel the feelings of failure and know it's not a bad thing. Want them to know there's a way to push through and move forward. I love that, and really speaks to like, your ability as an educator to like make a safe environment for students to feel comfortable in failing and feel comfortable that like, we have this vision for what our prototype is going to look like on May 3rd, and here are all the steps how we're going to get there, but we might get to step 3 instead of step 5, and we're still going to be, shoot for the moon and land among the stars sort of thing, which is really great. Seeing failure as feedback. Yeah, awesome. Does anybody else want to come off of mute and answer this question? How do you frame, or how might you frame this value of iterating to your students, your participants?
I think I actually named that. Like, I named that as part of the learning goals so that they know that yes, the product's a goal, but one of the goals is learning that skill. I teach it in a high school environment. And so I'm like, you know what? There are going to be times when you go get a job or you're going off to college, and it's not going to be as scaffolded as do this and then do this. You're going to have to go through these. So practicing it now, you're just going to have these really great skills that are going to serve you super well in the future. So um, I don't know. And then just constantly telling them how proud I am of them. I think that just really helps. They start to see it themselves. So I think they start to see value in the struggle eventually. But some of them are there, some aren't. But I think they're starting to see.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Yeah, that's really great. I love like, yeah, playing with the idea of like sharing with our learners like, we're not just learning how to build an invention, we're learning these 6 really important life and career skills as a result of this project. One of those is, pushing through failure, learning to grow and be ambitious. So I love that call out. And that, that topic of scaffolding folds really nicely into this nonlinear process of design thinking. And I know Dr. Don is a huge fan of this as well. We heard a little bit about it during your community share, but really emphasizing in this phase, Project Invent is non-linear right now. We are not going through slide decks. We're not going through this like process that's straightforward to get to our product, to get to our presentation. We are going through loops of empathizing and defining, and we can empathize with our partner at every stage. We can define or redefine our problems at every stage. If we hit right up to right after we come back from spring break here in April, and they're seeing their ideas aren't serving their community partner to the best that they can be, part of that pushing to the next level is going back to the empathy and defining board and ideation board and rethinking how they might do X, Y, and Z component. And then all with that prototype, we're thinking about how we can build on our prototype, also thinking about how can we deconstruct it and go backwards in order to go 3 steps forward again. And then also we bring in that testing component, which again informs our empathy, informs our definition of what the problem might be. Sometimes teams, run all the way up to demo day and they might have to redesign very, very last minute. And that's great. We award that process. We have something called the Product Pivot Award, where we showcase and congratulate teams that have done a really great job of overcoming a significant challenge or barrier in their design process and really utilizing this cyclical design thinking strategy in order to redefine and recreate their invention. Jerome, anything to add? Awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome. Well, now talking about the technical pieces, we have kind of this idea of an MVP. And I know, like Jerome said, March Madness, thinking most valuable player, right? Well, we can make that connection. We can make that through line to an MVP in this invention and product space. And what we mean by MVP is minimum viable product. And this is really defined as the invention with the most minimum features and functionality to satisfy early consumers, early customers, early clients, your community partners, and it allows for feedback and future development. So really centering the student design process on what is the minimum viable product that we can get to for demo day. Jerome, do you have any background to share kind of on this image, this product build here? We've got a really cool story going on with transportation, and I'd love to toss it over to you for this.
Yeah, I think the idea here is that, you're not just highlighting the process of building like the top line is, right? That is the build process, which is a good process to highlight as we've talked about. You want to show your students' story as they go through this. But minimum viable product is what is if I need to get somewhere, technically I could just take a skateboard, right? Like that would get me there. It may not be the best way to get there, but if that is the simplest version of the car and I just have the floorboard of the car and a couple wheels, like I could get there that way. But then if there's a handle added onto it, or if we add pedals to make it easier to move, or if we add a motor instead of having to pedal, or we get all the way up to the car, right? Those are different levels of iteration. And so as we look at kind of what makes each one of these different than the next level, it's not necessarily even that one of these is better. There may be a scenario in which a skateboard is the better option for you. So it's not necessarily telling your students that moving up this ladder is making a better product. It's really just the skateboard is the minimum viable product for getting moving you from one place to another on wheels. And arguably, we could even put like the one wheel before that, I guess. Now that that's a thing, right? But but then as you look at, if we want to make this a little bit easier on ourselves, or if we want to make this a little bit more reliable for us, or if we want to add a little bit more safety or a little bit more pizzazz, what are some of the things that we can move up the levels of, as we'll talk about here in a second, of a product development that would make it better for the consumer, for the user in this case?
Yeah, so thinking about these kind of different examples of how we can conceptualize a minimum viable product with ourselves and with our students. I'm looking here at our office chair example. Tabby had her community share way back earlier this year, talking about an office chair and having students redesign an office chair. But like the minimum viable product is just a chair, but the best product, the full product is, cushions and rollers and the adjustable seating. We we have this donut example here of like a plain cake donut, but the real fully fleshed out product is this beautiful donut with sprinkles and icing. um, Similar to like the burger example, we've got a burger at its most basic form. It'll get the job done. It'll satisfy that craving. Meat, cheese, bun, condiments. But then we have kind of like this standard, starter version of a product where we're putting a lot more fixins on. We got multiple patties, and then we get to this crazy, all features included, like burger, fries, looks like there's onion rings on there kind of situation. And then we have like an infographic here that really kind of breaks that down for us. So minimum product is like the most rudimentary, bare bones foundation of the solution, of the idea possible. Viable piece means it's sufficient enough for an early user of this product, your community partner. So they're able to see how this might work. They're able to grasp the concept, the proof of concept. And then the product specifically is like that tangible piece that customers, our clients, our community partners can touch and feel. And that really speaks to our requirement of a physical invention prototype, not just an app, not just a website, something that's physically formed that they can touch and feel and manipulate and give feedback on. We also have this pyramid representation of a minimum viable product and kind of this next push to demo day. So everything foundationally, just like Dr. Don said, comes back to our community partner, our target customers, as they're said in this pyramid. Start there. So we look at the context that's going on with our partners, with our communities, and we center ourselves, we build our foundation off of them. Then we look at their unserved needs and we start to move up the pyramid through this method. And you'll also notice what is going on here on the left. We have not only our target community partners, we go then to their unserved needs, we go then to functional, but we also go through this left-hand side of audience and thinking about where we can continue to build up and get as close to the top of the pyramid as possible, but really understanding where we need to be surely is just looking at our community partner, trying to meet their unserved needs, showing our idea is functional and feasible, and then scaling down our audience in such a way that we make sure we're really being attentive to our partner specifically, but we might have an idea of how we could grow that audience over time with our product. An example of this kind of could be like, you think about serving the community partner with Parkinson's, you might think that your students, this could also be adaptable to somebody that has a different kind of, you know, limited mobility in their hands. And that's a applicable audience for our prototype down the line. But right now, we're going to really narrow our focus to folks that have Parkinson's that are within this age group that live in our area. And then as we scale, as we think more about like developing our product big picture, we can think more about growing our audience, but focusing in on these components that are really important for specifically our partner. And then we can think big picture down the line. So if we're having trouble hitting this minimum viable product area, some things you might think about are adjusting your invention scope. So trying to target a smaller audience of users. An example again of this, if we're thinking about it in a different context, a couple of years ago there was a project where they were building a piece of PE equipment for students with physical disabilities. The initial target audience would be like any student in any PE class anywhere. And then we were able to narrow that down to just kids who want to learn baseball in PE class. And then we were able to narrow that audience down even further for demo day to like a kind of user persona of like Benny, the 7-year-old child in elementary PE class who wants to learn T-ball. So kind of thinking about how you can scale that down. Focus on one need your community partner has. Sometimes we see a prototype that's trying to like tackle a lot of different needs. Scaling it down to one need can be helpful, and also limiting extra features. And then getting from the MVP to the next level, pushing through that, is reliability. So we're at functionality. How do we now increase to reliability if we have time, right? So this is debugging. This is going through the software process, making sure our code is like super crisp and clean and working really well. And then finally, we have this like usable concept, which is the next level above that, just building 3D modeling, visualizing something really, really, you know, high level prototype wise. We have some examples for you. Jerome, do you want to take us through these examples?
Yeah, I think similarly, right? Similar to what we were talking about earlier, right? As you're prototyping, the one on the left, the cardboard one, shows what you're looking to. It's a good example of like, this is what we wanted to see, and this is functional. This is good. Like it functions the way we want it to. And then as you upgrade and you start to add some of the other features, you're looking at what is going to make this more reliable. So, you know, cardboard we know is eventually going to start to wear out, so it's maybe not going to be as reliable. So as we move into prototype 2, it's now made out of wood. It's got a few more pieces along with it that'll help guide the control piece. It can now move in a circle as opposed to just up and down and side to side. So we've also started to look into adding some extra features to it, or kind of increasing the features that we already had. Then you add in the some of the pieces like creating a case that will hide all of your mechanisms and those sorts of things, so that it's harder to then destroy or mess those things up. So you're working on safety and improving that reliability. And then finally at prototype 4, you're at that high fidelity. You've made it out of, you know, the top materials you can. This is like the best version of it. It doesn't mean that the first version of it isn't one that your students couldn't show at demo day, or even could take to an investor or something and say like, this is where we're at right now. This is showing you everything you need to know about our product, but here's where we want to take it eventually. And so having that vision, that eye towards kind of where it's going to be in the end is a good representation here.
Yeah, and here's another great example. You know, are these both acceptable in demo day? Yes. On the left here, we have this really basic, like rubber snap bracelet, and it's the batteries are showing, the wires are showing. we've got the component there, the electronics, like you can feel it. Like that's, when you have a final product, you don't want to be able to feel the components of the smartwatch. But on the right side is like this ideal where we want to get to if we manufacture it, if we got a patent, etc. On the left is this really great representation of our idea, and it can show that concept to people. They can feel it, they can see it, they can visualize it. So thanks, Shannon. This is really good. I like the language to frame levels. Many times I've heard reference to leveling up with images and prototypes, but going from functional, reliable to usable defines those levels. Yes. Awesome. And we'll absolutely share these too as well, so you can take all of this back to students too after this. Well, with that, we want to definitely save some community building time. Just looking here at our time. Oh, wow, look at that. We're perfect on time, 9:55, 9:56. So we have 4 different breakout rooms that we want to open up for everyone. We're going to stay in here until about 10:15 Mountain Time, 9:15 Pacific, 11:15 Central, 12:15 Eastern. And really just want to give you all some time to meet and discuss in community. Wherever you're at with your invention process, wherever you're at pushing students to the next level, feel free to share and show up, with any kind of thing you want to discuss. So, hey, I'm having such a tough time with getting students engaged. We have room 4 for that. Oh, I'm really lost on how to help students prepare their pitch. We've got room 3. And then room 1 and 2 are prototyping. So you don't have to be there just for like the tech piece. It could also be like, oh, we want to 3D print this thing, or like, oh, we want to figure out how to get this kind of part of our prototype, and I have no idea how to find that part. Just kind of section yourself off into whether your students are working on microbit or Arduino, but you absolutely don't have to talk about tech in those rooms. It can all be about prototyping, but we find that it's most helpful when folks get to kind of be with those different microcontroller groups. So we'll open up those breakout rooms. Jerome, if you'd be able to help us out with that, creating 4 rooms, and then I'll put this in the chat again so everybody has a great idea of where you're going. So room 1 and room 2, building and prototyping. Room 3, preparing your pitch. Room 4, team engagement. Dr. Don, where do you want to go so people can follow you if they want to talk to you? Oh, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Either room 3 or 4, wherever you think that I could be most useful.
Yeah, awesome. How about 3,
Yeah.
since we heard a
Preparing your
lot about
pitch.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great. So folks, go ahead and go into those breakout rooms. Again, about 15 past the hour, we're going to come back in and go over our announcements. So please take all the time that you want to chat and discuss and build community. And let us know if you need help getting into rooms.
I think one of the questions too was that Dawn had was, do the kids get to present on stage? Do they bring, what are they bringing on stage for props? Last year we had the rooms in the beginning where we could look around and play with other people's teams and kind of engage with them prior to the demonstrations. Do you think that would look similar?
Yeah, so during the presentations, we encourage students to think about, like, do you want to bring your actual invention up there? Do you want to bring examples of it? You'll still have the slide decks and stuff behind you, so if it's easier to show pictures of those things. We've had groups who have tried to bring, they have like larger prototypes, so it's easier to bring those up on stage and show people what they look like. So props or, additional physical resources are more than welcome, even during the virtual presentations, really, if you want to show those off from your camera or whatever. But yeah, so there will be a stage presence, if you will, for the in-person ones that allow for some of that. And then that's we're trying to ensure that there's an opportunity for more of the like checking out and playing with other people's things or learning from other people's inventions during that time, ahead of time or afterward, and figuring out how that all slots in with the actual schedule of the night. So Don, this is a great resource. I'm going to add this to our notes that we'll send out to people after the meeting as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Awesome. Well, just for the sake of time, we have a lot of announcements, but really quickly, if we could get someone from room 3 and room 4 to share, any takeaways or a quick summary of your discussion. Room 2, we talked all about microbits, so we found our microbit kits. We talked about what prototype support looks like and what will be for next week. We talked about, kind of like a microbit project and how we might support students building that microbit project. So it's great. Shout out to Shannon and Stephanie and Carlin. And toss it over to some representative from room 3. Just 1-2 sentences, what you talked about and what you learned.
Well, we talked a little bit about what people might expect, like at day of. Dr. Don talked to us about finding the rubric for the pitches and making sure to go through that with our students before, so because that's what the pitch coaches are going to expect. And because I specifically have all seniors who graduate the night before their virtual presentation day, she recommended having a backup video already recorded and ready to show, just in case some of them, might not make it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, senioritis is real. I know we've got a lot of folks in here who have seniors. That's a fantastic idea. Thank you so much, Katie, for that debrief. And then someone from room 4, 1 or 2 quick sentences, how team engagement conversation went.
I can jump in here. In the team engagement breakout room, I think it was a really safe space for us to talk about our challenges and provide each other with solutions. We also got to talk about what our prospects for next year look like. We spoke on demo day and just really, gave each other support. So that was really good.
That's so great to hear. Thank you, India, for sharing. Awesome. All right, on to announcements so we can wrap up and give you back your Saturday time. Make sure to end on time. Whew, we got a lot of stuff going on right now, y'all. Really quickly, you've got 3 sections: announcements, need support, and upcoming opportunities. I want you all to feel empowered to stop us at any point in time in the next 8 minutes. If you have a question, you're really confused about something, stop us and let us know and we'll clarify. So for announcements, I want to tell everyone pitch coaching starts on March 27th. For some of you, this will be during spring break. Don't stress. Just, get back on as soon as you're back from break. It'll be totally fine. We expect each team to meet with their pitch coach 2 to 4 times before May 3rd. All right? If this is going to be a challenge logistically for you, reach out to me or Jerome, whoever is your manager, as soon as possible, and we'll get you set up with Carrie. We'll work out all the details, especially talking to folks with a lot of teams. So all of our fellows on the call here today that have like 6 teams each, if there's going to be some scheduling challenges, let us know as soon as possible, as soon as you get back from spring break or next week, and we'll help you out there. Road to Demo Day. Check out our chat. Jerome just dropped the link. This module is imperative that you check out. Do it today so you don't forget. Right after we get off this call, if you haven't seen Road to Demo Day in the portal, as soon as you leave here, check it out. It's going to have the rubric. It's going to have all of the guidelines set out for how to be prepared, how to get your submission done, how to get your students, to complete that part of their project. Very important. Demo Day X registration specifically is very past due. So if you are confused about what your demo day is, if you never told us which demo day you wanted to attend, let Jerome and I know. as soon as possible. Get it, right after this meeting, shoot us an email if you're confused or you're lost or you never signed up for a demo day. We'll make sure to take care of that. And Future Fest, Jerome was sharing a little bit during our breakout room get back together. Um, Future Fest is getting sunsetted this year, but it's transforming into something called Night of Innovation. So we're hoping to bring the Future Fest experience to more regional events. So instead of one culminating Future Fest in San Francisco, we're transitioning to making it this Night of Innovation event with corporate partners and sponsors and partnerships to bring that experience to our students at NorCal Demo Day, which I believe is in San Jose, and our in-person Demo Day in New York City. Jerome, you want to share about prototype support?
Sure, yeah. Prototype support has been going on. I love prototype support, love suggesting that people go. One, because like Alexis and I know some of the things and we love to help as much as we can. We both have learned a lot, both Alexis with her team, and then me just through tinkering and playing. But the prototype support is really like we know that there are gaps that we have in our knowledge, and we know that sometimes, as much as we like try to encourage you to just Google or look for some of the resources we give, sometimes it's really helpful to just have someone who actually knows the answer. And prototype support can be that. And let your students sign up for this or sign your students up for this for 1 or 2 times as they go through, like, we know that this should work. We have the code that we think should work, but it's not turning on the light, or we're getting an error code as we upload it into Arduino or whatever. Like, sign up for prototype support, because people there can help you figure out and problem solve, troubleshoot the issues that are going on there. It's a great drop-in resource, kind of like a college professor's office hours. And yeah, we highly recommend. Those will be going on through May 1st, so you've got lots of time for those as your students continue to iterate. And then obviously you've still got support from Alexis and I at any time. You are always welcome to jump on our calendars and ask about the logistics things that we talked about at the top of this meeting. Or if you want to know more about Demo Day, Night of Innovation, how to prep your students, any of those things, please jump back on our calendars. We're gonna direct you to the experts if you're looking for tech help.
Yes, thanks, Jerome. Upcoming opportunities. So our applications for Fellow of the Year, Emerging Fellow of the Year, and Community Partner of the Year are all open. We are opening it up to self-nominate. If you feel that you've done amazing things with project and event community, please nominate yourself. Also seek out and advocate. Ask your administrators, ask your supervisor, ask your leader to nominate you as well. Ask your students. Don't be afraid to ask people to nominate you for an award you think you're qualified for. We want to see as many applications as possible because you are all awesome. You shine really bright in our programs. You're all here on a Saturday. So please feel empowered to advocate for yourself for this award. And also please nominate your community partner if you think they're an amazing partner. We want to see those nominations come in. We want to have as many as possible. And also we have registration for upcoming school year. If you're coming back to us fall 2024, let us know. We're so excited. All those registration forms are available now. As a current Project Invent Fellow, you are automatically accepted into the fellowship for next year. You just have to let us know. We also want to know if you're not coming back and what that reason might be, how we could, receive your feedback, how we could have a better program, or simply, hey, I'm moving, I'm getting a different job, I'm leaving teaching or I'm leaving education. Whatever it is, let us know. So tell us about your plans for next year at your earliest convenience. Like I said,
We'll also make sure.
automatically invited. Yes?
No, I was just gonna say, we'll also make sure if you can't make that decision right now, if you don't know,
Yes.
you can tell us later. But if you do know, or if you think you know, or if you think you know what your decision is right now, and then that decision changes, tell us now, and then tell us later that it has changed. That's fine too.
Yes, communication. That's the key, folks. Awesome. And just like Dawn was saying too, year 2 is a lighter lift. You can have students come back for a year 2 and be leaders in your program. All Title I schools are still eligible for no fees because you are covered under our impact grant. returning fellows, you get a discount because you do not need to be trained again. So public school, that goes down to $500 annually. Independent schools, that goes down to $1,500 annually. So keep that in mind. Let us know, especially if you'd like to invite people. See here, we have our referral program, and so here we also have our whole school model. Just to quickly shout this out, we love advocates like Dr. Don who want to bring this to your whole school community, or you want to have it across an entire school grade or an entire capstone. Contact Jerome and I if you're really passionate about bringing Project Invent to a larger community within your educational setting, whether it's your after school site, your in-school site, you want to do more clubs, anything like that. Let us know. We'd love to chat. We'd love to bring you into that conversation. We also have our referral program. So every first referral you make, it can be somebody in your school, it can be someone in your district, it can just be a teacher friend you have, another after school friend you have. The first referral that you make to us and they apply to the fellowship is $70. Each additional referral is $30 in your pocket. You send more people our way as well. So keep this in mind as you're going into spring and summer. We'd love to take your suggestions. We'd love for you to share the word and refer people to our program. And also just note, anybody you're welcoming or you're referring to us in the program or is running Project Invent, especially if they're at your school or your site, they do need to be trained. So at least one fellow needs to be trained that's leading a team. Really quickly, some big events coming up. Pitch coaching again. This is our milestone and our big thing we want to highlight for both spring. This is spring and fall, or full year, sorry, is May 3rd. Is when either your video is due for demo day or your slide deck is due for demo day. So in-person folks, if you're going to in-person demo day, turn in your slide decks for your teams, May 3rd. If you're coming to virtual demo day, turn in your videos by May 3rd. All right, any other event notes, Jerome? Cool. All right, and finally, please don't leave this meeting without taking a quick survey. Less than 5 questions, less than 2 minutes. We are really passionate about continuing to improve, and your participation in filling out this quick survey will give us attendance so we can count you as having come to this professional development. We can get you those PD hours and a certificate, and it'll also really help us figure out how we might differ on cohort meetings next year to better serve all of our fellows. Scan this QR code. Jerome also dropped the link in the chat. If you have the chat open, please just take this last minute or so of our meeting today to fill out this survey. And we look forward to hearing your feedback about our cohort meetings. And do let us know in that survey too if you need any additional support or have any additional feedback for us about anything. Thank you again for taking that survey. And I'm happy to stick around an extra few minutes too if folks want to hang on if they have questions. But thank you again for coming to us on a Saturday. It's great to see you all, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. For those of you heading off to spring break, have a wonderful spring break, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye, everyone. Have a great night.